that is manifestation. It's either I know it's going to happen or it's not. And knowing that without previous evidence is the process of manifestation.
People aren't, very good at understanding probability, and we're not very good at measuring how frequent these things actually work.
The Rational View is a weekly series hosted by me, Dr. Alan Scott, providing a rational, evidence-based perspective on important societal issues.
Produced by Soapbox Media.
The world needs evidence-based public policy now more than ever. Making the right decisions should not be partisan politics. Please help spread The Rational View by going to patron.podbean.com/The Rational View. Together, we can make a better future. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Rational View. I'm your host, Dr. Al Scott. Today, I want to tackle a topic you may have heard about in popular society these days. If you've ever listened to a motivational speaker or a life coach, for example, they call it manifestation. What is it? What does it mean? And what does science have to say about it? To get to the bottom of this, today I'm interviewing my brother, Kevin Scott, personal coach and leader of the Effortless Alpha men's program.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. And before we start, if you like what you're hearing, please press like on your podcast app. Please share it with your friends. And I'd love to hear from you on our Facebook group, The Rational View. So Kevin, could you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure, I'm Al's brother. I run, as he said, the Effortless Alphas. It's a men's group. Basically, my goal in life, my job, is to help men find more happiness in their lives. I've kind of just boiled it down to that over the last little while. That is what I truly desire to do, because I think there's a lot of unhappy men in the world. We're trying to fit into society's mold of what we're supposed to be instead of just being our own unique individuals. And it really takes a toll on men over a lifetime. My fiancée, Melanie, works mostly just with women, and I work mostly with men. And that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. So today we're coming at you from a remote location. This is not the Rational View studio. It's a hotel room where we're watching the World Curling Championships here in Ottawa this week. So we're on an outing. So coming to you live or taped from a remote location. And today we're talking about manifestation, Kevin. Yes. So this is something you brought up in discussion. We went to the casino. There was some manifestation that happened there. This seems to be a key mantra of a lot of personal coaching that I've heard on social media. So could you give us your definition of what is manifestation and what you see it as?
Sure. In the coaching world, in the self-development world, manifestation is essentially bringing an idea, bringing a desire to life in physical form. So if I want to have a successful business and I eventually get that, that's me manifesting my successful business. And talking about manifestation last night at the casino, we were at the penny slots there, and we were trying to manifest a win. But in the trying, that prevented the manifestation. Because the trying implicitly has a feeling of lack within it, like a need or a try, an attempt. As Yoda said, do or not do, there is no try. Yoda was very wise. And that is manifestation. It's either I know it's going to happen or it's not. And knowing that without previous evidence is the process of manifestation, is the law of attraction, is the secret, if you've seen the movie or bought the book. So we're sitting at these penny slots, pulling the thing and pressing the buttons and trying to manifest, and I'm losing money and I'm losing money and I'm losing money. I said, all right, at $10, I'm leaving this machine. We're going to go to another machine. Al, you choose a machine. So I've taken my sort of human thoughts, my thoughts in the back of my head, which machine is going to be the best, out of the equation. Al chooses the machine. I sit in the one next to him. I just get this feeling about this little leprechaun guy on the machine there. No expectation whatsoever when I sit down at the machine. First press, I think I won $6 or something like that. And then 2 presses later, I won another $4. So I've doubled my money in less than 2 minutes. And that's when, again, the expectation crept in. The thoughts started creeping in. Okay, how am I going to keep winning money? Is this machine going to keep paying out? Should I move to a different machine instead of just enjoying the process, not being up here at all, just being myself and putting out that energetic signature of I'm here to have fun, I'm here to win money. Later on, we go to a different machine and I'm feeling a pull. I'm feeling this like within my body, in my stomach. I feel this pull towards the machine to my left, even though I'm playing the one directly in front of me. And I ignore it. And I feel it again a few seconds later, and I ignore it. About a minute later, I feel it again. I said to Al, I have a feeling about this machine. I'm going to move one machine down. So I cash out on this one. I put my little ticket in the next one. And what was it? Second, third press. Actually, I remember just going, which button should I press? And I was going with that feeling again. And my middle finger was over this one button. And I just felt that one. I pressed it. The machine starts going crazy and I win $100. So I believe that was more of a manifestation than any of the little tiny wins that we'd had before.
That was quite a win and made for a fabulous evening.
Sure.
So I want to give kind of the skeptical or scientific opinion on manifestation. So to get that, I wanted to understand what you thought manifestation was. Mm-hmm. Why do you believe that manifestation works? What is the evidence that comes to you? Do you have authority figures that tell you that this works, or is this something that you've come up with yourself? Like, why is this something that works?
Well, of course, being in self-development, you have all the quote-unquote gurus saying manifestation. But I coming from our background, I was also very skeptical early on about its possibility. But I just have the evidence of my own life. Having a thought and a feeling back, 10 years ago when we're essentially broke and living paycheck to paycheck, and putting all the money into the self-development world and having this big goal, this big dream of doing something great in the world, of becoming wildly wealthy. And I remember my only goal that I constantly thought and felt about is I just want to be able to go where I want, when I want, with no restriction. Go where I want, when I want, with no restriction. And at that time, I'm working for somebody else. I'm working for a company, and I have some control over where I go sometimes in a sort of a sales job. But that feeling never left. And I never doubted for a second that it was going to happen. I had no idea how it was going to happen, but I never doubted that it was going to happen. And 5 years later, we can go where we want, when we want, with no restrictions at all. And I see this happening for people all over the place. And, just in small things, I want to have an incredible experience while we're on vacation, and it just turns out the right person with the right boat that just has an incredible experience for us. We go out there, or the right hotel room pops up. All of a sudden, it's just free because we want to go to this hotel, and someone's canceled when we're looking to book, and it just happens like that because we have no expectation on how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. It's just, I desire this outcome, and I know it's going to happen, and then it does.
Okay. So let's look at the contrary here. So you've pulled out some anecdotes. You have confidence in this as something that you're doing, influencing your circumstances. Mm-hmm. Have you tried ever to manifest something and failed? What's the success rate of manifestation?
Yeah, but that's just it. As soon as I try to manifest things, it stops. As soon as we put our own doubts and fears and possible thoughts that it might not happen, it probably won't. Because we're constantly manifesting. Constantly. Whether we're bringing in good things or bad things to our lives, we're constantly creating what's going on in our heads and in our emotions. I believe that it can be done, talked about scientifically, because our thoughts create brainwaves. Our hearts and our emotions create an electromagnetic field, which is 60 times stronger than brainwaves. So as I'm thinking something and I have a feeling that is positive, I have a stronger magnetic frequency about me that's going to attract either the people, the places, the things, that's going to bring what I'm thinking about to me. Now, if I'm thinking and feeling poorly about myself, or thinking, something bad's going to happen, more than likely, if it's in alignment with my thought and my feeling, this bad's going to happen. I feel like something bad's going to happen. There's a really good chance that bad thing is going to happen, because my electromagnetic field is attracting that thing to me. We're constantly manifesting.
Okay, so here's maybe where I would differ with you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you talk about electromagnetic fields. And yes, our bodies do have electromagnetic fields. Our heart is an electrically stimulated muscle. There are currents going through our neurons.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a lot of magnetic field in our bodies, but definitely some electrical fields happening. And there's dipoles, there's firing, there's neurons. All these things are happening. Mm-hmm. But you use these terms very loosely. Like our magnetic fields don't attract people because people are not ferromagnetic. We can be in huge magnetic fields and not even know it. You can put your body into an MRI machine and experience, several Tesla, whereas the magnetic field of the Earth is much, much smaller, orders of magnitude smaller. And we're always in these magnetic fields. The body, any magnetic fields coming from the body or electrical fields from the body are dwarfed by environmental fields, like from, say, the wiring in our house emitting 60 hertz electromagnetic electrical and magnetic fields. These things are all around us. Our bodies are a very small fraction of this. So the fact that you think that the fields being generated in our bodies are what's responsible for this, I think is maybe just a bit of a mischaracterization. It seems to me like, yes, there are a lot of things here talking about, the power of positive thinking and the power of being in a good mindset. And psychologically speaking, sure, I can understand that as leading to good results. But I think people aren't, very good at understanding probability. And we're not very good at measuring how frequent these things actually work. And we have a nice handy excuse if they don't work, is we're not trying the right way, or our emotions aren't quite right. So I don't want to go in too much depth into that right now, but I just want to go into something and maybe expand on a discussion that we had earlier about, you were talking about quantum mechanics and how, we were talking about electrons, how they can be in two places at the same time, or you have entanglement between very far apart electrons so that they can interact at faster than the speed of light. When one is influenced, the other one immediately collapses.
Yes.
And that, I think you had mentioned that this is something that is influenced by the observer.
From what I understand, yes.
Yeah. And then I was researching this on the web, from other coaches, and they come up with the law of attraction.
Yes.
And this is obviously something you're familiar with. Mm-hmm. And from the website I read, it explains that if we change our electromagnetic field by changing our thoughts and emotions, then that will attract a new reality from the quantum field. The thought must match the feeling, and then we have to hold that state of being long enough for the manifestation to occur. And then they had a 4-step approach to it. You must be very specific on what you want to manifest. You have to feel right now what you would feel if you already obtained that manifestation: joy, gratitude, love. Maintain a state of elevated emotions, and then wait for the manifestation to occur. Is that in line with your thinking?
That's basically the law of attraction, and you can see how difficult it is and why most people never manifest what they desire. Because how do you maintain the state of elevated emotions on a day-to-day basis while you're living your life?
That does seem difficult, especially if nothing manifests.
If nothing manifests right away, that's why our thoughts, it says the thoughts lead to the emotions lead to the actions lead to results. So our thoughts change. Like, where's my manifestation? Why hasn't it come yet? And I take myself out of the emotional state. instantly.
So your reference to the observer effect in quantum mechanics is interesting, because a lot of scientists have actually gone down this path of thinking that consciousness impacts quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics, is the basis of all of our physics, really. It sounds like woo, but is there substance to it? Can changing our thoughts and emotions impact these things? We know that changing thoughts and emotions changes the state of our brains and can change the frequency of the electromagnetic signals in the brain, these tiny signals that you need electrodes to pick out. The big assertion here that I think is missing is that putting your brain into a particular emotional state probably doesn't significantly impact quantum events, even if the observer interpretation of quantum mechanics is true. So I've researched this a little bit, and there's been studies done to look at whether or not observers can change random processes, can impact random processes by focusing on them consciously. So, and I think most of physics, at one point, what we say is that a quantum mechanical object can exist as a superposition until it's observed. This is a statement that is often used in the popular media to mean that consciousness is somehow involved in this. But I think most physicists would say an observation is just a measurement, and events progress the same, whether it's an inanimate camera making that observation or an eyeball making that measurement. It's something that interrupts the free flow of the wave function and disturbs the interference effects that you might want to be seeing. So, it's not an accepted postulate of quantum mechanics that conscious observers are necessary to collapse the wave function. However, you can go forward with this and test it, right? Assuming the conscious mind is somehow responsible for collapsing the wave function, then one must then assume that intentionally placing the brain into a particular emotional state, which is what you're saying, would then influence the outcome of random events toward those that have a similar emotional impact on the subject, right? That
sounds scientifically like it, yes.
Yeah. And then you have to assume that enough quantum mechanical interactions can be affected to make a macroscopic change to the events surrounding the subject. And we're not talking about increasing the tunneling probability of a single electron out of a box here. We're talking about influencing other people's decisions like a Jedi Master.
Almost, because if I'm feeling and thinking, if I have extraordinary conviction around something that I know is going to happen, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's going to affect the way that you think and feel about me and that probable outcome. And then it's going to affect the way you think and talk and feel and speak about me and that probable outcome to other people. So if someone wants to manifest the biggest dream of their life, and they say that they're a self-made whatever, I don't really agree that anyone is self-made, because it takes hundreds, if not thousands, of people to create success of any kind. But it's that person's conviction that says, I know I'm going to be successful in whatever that means for me. I know I'm going to be it. So when they speak about it, when they talk about it, it actually affects other people in a different way, as if they go, I believe or I hope someday I'm going to find success in life. Well, that doesn't change you at all. It has no effect on you whatsoever. There's no energy to my words, and I don't use energy in a scientific way there, but just there's no pizzazz to my words. But if I say I'm going to be the world's greatest relationship coach for men, and I speak about it, and I dive into it, and I work at it, and I think about it, and I maintain that positive attitude, that positive emotion around it. I know it's happening. People around me hear me speak about it. They speak about me to other people, and that creates that eventual success.
And what I'm seeing, I see a lot of positive emotional thinking bringing success to you. And I see this in a lot of places. And I think what we need to think about is there's a difference between the weak manifestation and the strong manifestation. So the weak manifestation in my mind is that the power of positive thinking creates positive results. And this is, I think, something that psychologically has been demonstrated in a lot of cases. Whereas the strong one is that the power of your mind somehow changes physics.
It's the power, and again, I don't believe it's just the thoughts, because positive thinking does not create positive results. That's a meme that was created to make it easier for people to try and understand it, I guess. I don't know why. Because it's not just positive thinking, because you can have a positive thought and an awful feeling. I think that today is going to be a great day, when inside I feel like that's a lie. So what's going to happen? Probably not going to have a great day, because I feel and I have an energy about me. I change the energetic signature, the electromagnetic frequency around me. Again, I can't prove that. I have a feeling that it has something to do with that. So it changes the energy that I'm giving off. It changes the responses I get from people. It's not just positive thinking.
No, I believe that being able to change your emotional state definitely can be picked up by those around you. Like, people are very
100%.
good at reading emotional state. And so I think the cues that you give off if you don't change your emotional state and try to think positively, could be very confusing and not conducive to the results that you're trying to find. But getting back to the physics of this, which I also want to dig into. So random events that we experience are often expected to not be random at all from a physics standpoint, and are actually just difficult to predict series of classical physical interactions, right? Quantum mechanics doesn't govern everything. Like, quantum probabilities aren't at the basis of every decision we make necessarily, although some might disagree. Presumably, very few macroscopic events would be decided on quantum mechanical bases, and that's why Schrodinger went to such lengths to do the Schrodinger's cat experiment, right? To put it in a box and to have its life and death hinging on a single quantum mechanical event. I think very few experiences and coincidences that we actually experience in everyday life are hinged on single quantum mechanical events. There's certainly huge statistical numbers of quantum mechanical events, and we know pretty well how these things go. So I want to maybe go and look at other interpretations of quantum mechanics, if you'll indulge me for a second, and how they interact. Like, so the conscious observer collapsing the wave function is one interpretation of quantum mechanics. There's the Copenhagen interpretation that, is just probability and it's just random, which is probably the favored interpretation of most physicists and doesn't require a lot of thought and doesn't yield much to thought as well. And then there's the many worlds theorem, for example, that posits that we exist in a continuum of universes. And this universe that we're experiencing is just one of the many universes. And there's copies of us, identical copies of us, that every time we make a decision, go off and live their lives making the other decision. So in this case, manifestation just works for the lucky one of you in the lucky universe and doesn't work at all for the uncounted other copies of you.
Not necessarily, because then they can change that. But because you mentioned something there, you just before you got into that, it was one single moment. Manifestation doesn't happen in one single moment. It's not just one thought with one feeling, bam, I'm going to get what I desire. As we looked at earlier, the law of attraction, it's continuous. It's continuous thought with continuous feelings that I know it's going to happen. It's never been one moment that changes everything. It's constant little tiny changes in myself, in my situation, in the world around me. But I have at least some control over it based on how I think and feel about it going forward.
So on the pro side, the quantum observer effect, you might want to look at some leading physicists still believe that quantum mechanics is linked to consciousness. And Sir Roger Penrose is the example of this. Him and Stuart Hameroff has come up with a theory of consciousness, which is based on our brains having quantum mechanical collapse processes going on that create our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you wouldn't be booed out of a physics department for saying that thoughts could impact events. But I think on the level of multiple planned events that need to lead up to a particular conclusion that will change your life, that seems to have some sort of planning involved in it that physics can't account for at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of,
I get that.
In terms of thinking, this has been a common thought throughout history, and even the famous 17th century French mathematician René Descartes believed that a gambler's optimistic attitude can bias the outcome of a gambling game towards success. And in fact, gamblers believe this too, and this is why casinos make so much money.
But also last night, I was very positive about winning, and we eventually won.
Sure. Well, you did. I did not. But maybe I wasn't in the proper emotional state.
Because you were skeptical.
So, on the physics basis, if consciousness were fooling with quantum experiments, such as for the iconic double slit experiment, for example, and causing collapse of the wave function, you would expect then, the double slit is where you have two slits and you fire a particle or a wave or a light or an electron through it, and it creates an interference pattern going through it. But if you were to observe which slit the electron goes through, you collapse the wave function and the interference pattern disappears. So if consciousness is collapsing wave functions, then you would expect that randomly the presence of researchers would cause the double slit interference pattern to disappear. And you don't see that, right? Mm-hmm. You don't, if you concentrate on your double slit and you're doing the experiment, it never disappears. You can't make that change. Now, many other proposals have been put forward to cause collapse, and I think from a science standpoint, at least, decoherence of the quantum mechanical matrix of connections between a small system and the large universe is what's actually thought to be behind the collapse of the wave function. So if you're in a small box, you have fewer links and fewer entanglements, but eventually these entanglements spread out as light moves off into the universe at the speed of light. You start interacting with many more different particles, and the interaction becomes collapses into a certain one or the other choice. And there's lots of interesting philosophy on this in physics. Look up the Wigner's friend experiment, for example, which is, Wigner is doing the cat in the box experiment, but Wigner's friend is outside the room and doesn't know what Wigner has seen in the experiment. So to him, Wigner is now in a superposition with the dead and alive cat.
He could also be dead or alive.
So let's not do that. We just want cats to be dead and alive, not experimenters, not physicists, please. But getting back to this, researchers have tried to test this by having people concentrate on random number generators and try to change the results. And there's actually, if you go into the literature, there are claims of significant effects. Mm-hmm. And, lots of different experiments have been tried, like on rolling dice or on true quantum mechanical random number generators. And as people have done more and more work to try to increase the statistical significance of it, always the effect goes to zero.
After a while.
Yeah.
Because our thoughts get in the way. And it's not just, I desire that outcome anymore. It's not just the pureness of the thought. It's the skepticism of that. And eventually it will go to zero. Absolutely. 100%. That's crazy. But also there's experiments done. I don't know the name of it. But when you give your emotion to a glass of water as it's freezing, it changes the patterns of the ice. If you look at it, it's very cool. They also did a study, a bunch of people, I think they were monks, to be honest, around just a glass of water, giving it negative thoughts for 7 or 12 hours or something, and the water actually turned murky. There's some really weird things that happen with people's thoughts and emotions with plants. You can kill a plant just by giving it awful, yelling at it and screaming at it continuously. And you can bring plants back to life by loving them. It's pretty fantastic. There is evidence of this. I don't have the scientific proof for that, but I have read evidence of it.
Yeah, this is the time where skepticism, a skeptic would ask for references.
I'm not the scientist. However, I can find them on the interwebs.
And I'm sure they've been debunked. So, I mean, let's talk about some other things. So, the emotional impact is also important, as you say. This is your theory that emotions are very important. So, many of these original experiments of random number generator influences were criticized by believers in saying that there's not enough emotional content to the wishes of the participants in the study. They don't care whether, it's not important enough for them to change their emotional state one way or another. So in 2018, researchers made up an experiment where they tried to induce positive emotional states in test subjects. And then they presented them with a series of both positive and negative images that were selected based on a quantum mechanically random process, not a pseudo random process that you get in a random number generator from a computer, but an actual quantum mechanical process was used to, assuming that perhaps these emotional states can influence the collapse of these quantum processes to show them more positive images. And again, this is, the huge data study where they found that, they strongly supported a null result. But then they went back and looked and they said, well, okay, maybe in the first little bit there's an effect. So this wasn't their hypothesis. Their hypothesis was not that the first little bit of the data would be good and then it would go to zero effect, or you would lose more and eventually you'd end up at average. But this was something that they brought up after the first experiment had failed.
Okay.
So, in science, we call that kind of data combing, where if you come up with a new result that you hadn't predicted, then you can apply what's called Bayesian statistics and suggest that, sure, if you comb the data any number of ways, eventually you're going to find a chance effect that comes out. But, what you need to do is start with a hypothesis and test that hypothesis. And in a lot of cases, what happens is that if you get a null result, you don't publish it because it's not interesting. And so then we have this selection effect in the literature where only people getting a random statistical impact are going to publish. So this is why you have to be very careful, even looking through the scientific literature, because the number of positive papers out there doesn't balance with the number of negatives, because you don't get money and funding if you publish negative results in a lot of cases.
Okay, so for that particular example, where they're showing people positive things or negative things to try and affect the outcome, again, if the people are being paid or know that they're in this test and they're trying to make something come out, if it doesn't actually matter to them, it probably won't affect it all that much, affect the results. It really has to be it has to have substance within us, because that's what truly changes the emotion. I can be happy and still attract things I don't want. I can be sad and attract things that I do want. It's when I think about that thing, do I really feel positive about it all the time? Do I know that it's coming? Is it something that is going to make me really, really, really happy in the end? But if I just want to change a number on a random number generator or find one, I think that the experiment was not founded with the results of trying to prove the law of attraction. That's all.
The problem is that with all of these caveats, you really can't test it.
It's difficult.
And so you presume that you have, when you are successful, you have done it right. And when you're unsuccessful, you've done it wrong. People love to find reason in things. People love to find explanations for how random bad things and random good things happen, because this is how we store memories, right? We store memories of significant events in our lives, and all of the neutral events we kind of gloss over. We don't store them in our memory. Our brain stores things that are significant emotionally to us. So if we're looking back in our life, we remember the $110 jackpot we win, and we forget about losing $10, losing $20, stopping playing the last time we went out. We think I was perfectly in an emotional state and I picked the right button, and not realizing that these things are programmed, they're random, they're the house is winning consistently over the long run, even though everyone who goes in there believes that if they push the right button, they're going to beat the system. So, I can't see how you could, there's always an excuse for why it doesn't work, right?
But again, I'll go back to it's people go in there believing they're going to win is not the same as going in knowing I'm going to win. It's like just when you feel the word, when you say the words, just if you're at home listening, say it to yourself, something that you know. I know, blah, blah, blah. I know that there is a table in front of me here. Instead of, I believe that if I go to the casino, I'm going to win. It's a very different feeling in the body. It's a different sensation. And I believe that is the difference between manifesting and random things happening to us on a regular basis.
And I think this manifestation thing is becoming very popular, I think, in coaching circles and through society in general. People are becoming aware of manifesting things, and more people are trying this. So I think if it's true, casinos are going to start losing money.
I wish it was so easy, but how can you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you're going to walk into a casino and win every time? How can you know it? This is why it doesn't work all that much.
But if more people are aware of it, it should become more frequent.
It could. It could, but I kind of doubt it. Because we're all human and we all have the emotions that get in the way. We all have the thoughts that creep in the back of our heads. We all have that skepticism to say, this isn't going to work. Even if there was a definitive scientific book that came out and said manifestation is 100% true, even if that came out and people read it and they practiced it, they still wouldn't be able to do it consistently.
So what you're telling us is it's kind of a useless skill.
No. No, if you can do it, it's so useful.
It's interesting because this has been around for a long time. And, people have, you even go to the Bible. The Bible, I think Mark 11:23 and Mark 11:24, they say, if you believe in your heart what you say, it shall come to pass. Mm-hmm. So, and those of us who aren't able to do it, we're just not good enough, right? We don't have the right belief system. We're not believing hard enough. And that actually is not the greatest message to be giving to people, because sure, some people are successful, a small fraction, and they feel that it's because of something special in them, the way that they can put their emotions in the right way. And the people that don't end up being successful, through no fault of their own, potentially through luck of the draw or bad luck or status or hierarchies or anything like this, and they're told that they're not doing it right. And I think that is actually a little bit harmful.
There's no right or wrong way about manifestation. Like I said, we're always constantly manifesting, and all the people that become successful have done is just continued on the path and known that it's going to come true for them. And yes, some people will become successful without this particular way of manifesting things. And some people that manifest their success will also, lose it and not be successful. This definitely does not mean anyone's doing anything right or anything wrong. 100% no. It's just, that's what it's, in this terminology, that's what manifestation is. End of story. You can absolutely become successful in 1,000 different ways. And just, to my mind, if you want to become successful, just don't give up. Keep trying, make mistakes, go again. That's not a manifestation conversation. That's just a keep going at it, because that's the way I did it, and that's the only way I know how.
That sounds good. So I think maybe we'll start to wrap this up. Really appreciate you for coming on and discussing your thoughts on manifestation. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. In my conclusion, I would say people are very good at picking up on body language, unspoken cues. I think, in my interpretation, weak manifestation is a thing. It's a power of positive thinking and, changing your emotional outlook to have more gratitude actually does improve your interactions with people. Why do people think this is working? What's really happening? Go back to my series of podcasts on bias. People don't understand probabilities. People don't remember what's happened to them properly. Their memories are changed by particularly significant events. And this is, the gambler's fallacy. People keep going back to the slot machines because they believe they can beat the odds from whatever system that they have or whatever specialness that they have. And the one thing we know for sure is that in the long run, they don't. And you've said that as well, that this is something that only works once in a while, but so is coincidence. And I find it difficult from a scientific sense to distinguish some of these precepts from coincidence. But I think the good part about it is that positive thinking is something that is helpful, and we can change things by being positive.
Absolutely.
So I thank you for bringing your perspective on this issue.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I hope everybody feels a little more positive and manifest something amazing in their lives.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
If you'd like to follow up with more in-depth discussions, please come find us on Facebook at The Rational View and join our discussion group. If you like what you're hearing, please consider visiting my Patreon page at patron.podbean.com/therationalview. Thanks for listening.